Whoa, welcome everyone back to yet another .NET Community Stand-Up. We have so many people on. There's, 5 right now. We have a 6th joining soon. Super excited to be back, honestly, with everyone, just kind of hanging out and getting ready to really have another amazing community stand-up.
I'm looking forward to this one, James.
Yeah, there's some new faces from the last one, which is really cool. So if people are in here, it's the first time coming in to one of the .NET Community Stand-Ups. Basically, what we do here is we do this every Thursday at 9 a.m., different workloads. So we're mobile, we have languages and runtime, tooling and cloud, and also ASP.NET is on Tuesday. We kind of go through and we highlight amazing things that the community is doing, blog posts or pull request-wise, awesome things that the teams are doing, and we do some demos from time to time, which is cool. So yeah, and we stream on both Twitch and YouTube, so the Visual Studio Twitch or the .NET Foundation YouTube. They're always there. And I'll show you where you can actually find some of that information so you can subscribe and get updated. But let's first do a roundtable really quick. I'll start and we'll just kind of go, you pick the next person. That'll be the adventure. I did that in a stand-up one time. You pick the next person. So I'm James Montemagno. I'm a program manager overseeing all of our mobile developer tools here, write awesome libraries, do a bunch of great stuff, and really excited to do the stand-up.
All right, my name is Matt Sokup. I am a cloud advocate here at Microsoft, and I do a bunch of evangelizing and advocating for all the developers that I heart so much. And Maddie, you get to be next.
Woo! I am Maddie Legere. I'm a PM at Microsoft. I work on Xamarin.Forms, our tooling, anything you see inside of Visual Studio, which is very exciting. I'll pass it to Jamie.
All right, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us here today. My name is Jamie Singleton. I'm a business program manager for the .NET community, and I get to hang out with all these lovely people, as well as all of you online. So looking forward to it.
And that leaves me, David Ortnow, Senior Program Manager, Xamarin, Mobile SDKs, Forms, iOS, Android, Components, and anything else you want to talk to me about.
Lovely. Yeah, so I asked Matthew on, we do the Visual Studio Mobile Dev podcast together. I asked him on because I have to leave in 20 minutes. I have to run all the way across campus. So, it happened. Yep. So I do apologize. So you'll see me leave. Like, where did James go? I don't know. I had to go run to 33 because I have to go talk to some people. So I do, unfortunately. But welcome everyone that just rated C# Fritz. Bring in the crowd. I love doing this at this time because it's literally as Fritz ends. He brings in the people to the stand-up. Thank you so much, Fritz, for being part of everything that you do in general. So first what I want to do is I want to go through really quick a few little things. So I'm going to go ahead and pip over here. Bloop. So the first thing I wanted to show you is where you can get access to all this information for upcoming stand-ups. So both on our .NET Foundation YouTube page and also on the Visual Studio Events page on Twitch, you'll see all of the upcoming stand-ups, which is really cool. Now, if you tap on one, this is part of a series. So you can actually see this one is streaming live. You can see all of them. And if you tap Remind Me on your Twitch account, that will send you a reminder for every single time. You can also Google .NET Foundation YouTube, and that will bring you to the YouTube page for the .NET Foundation. And you'll see the next few upcoming, the next week or so, upcoming live streams that are right there. So just be aware that you can always do that. And we chat live, so we're in here chatting as we go. There's 2 things I wanted to talk about that were cool before we go into some community blog posts, if it's okay with everyone. Is it okay with everyone? So there was this big initiative. I have a blog post that I'll be doing in a little bit, but of starting to work with a lot of conferences to help them donate swag. We've all been to conferences. No one says anything, but
I was just at one. I was just at one.
You just at
got
one?
Back yesterday.
Nice. Well, welcome back.
Thanks,
I'm sure there was swag.
There was swag. There was.
There was swag everywhere. Stuff we all get.
Too much.
And I've always been under this assumption that we all don't need 18 water bottles. I mean, they're great. I love water bottles or bags. We don't need them. But I
Or T-shirts that don't fit.
Yeah, T-shirts that don't fit. But there are people that need these things. And look at that. Look at you. The one thing I do keep is that. I have a bag that's overflowing with stuff. So I worked with the VS Live team, and I put this little thought in their head about creating a donation program, and they reached out to me that they are kicking this off at all of their stops this year. So VS Live is a great conference series. I speak at, Matthew's spoken at. David may have even spoken, I think, at one time. If not, we'll get him on the circuit there. But they're partnering with a different charity in each location that you can bring stuff. So if you have like old cards or old things that you want to donate, or if you have toiletry or you're coming locally or you want to go to the store, drop off stuff, you can do that. But also they will take your conference bag before, during, or after, and they'll donate it to the veterans charity that's there. And they're going to work in a different place with a different charity in each city.
That's amazing. That's a really great idea.
Yeah, called VS Live Gives Back. I thought it was really cool, calling out all conferences to make it happen. So I just thought that was cool. I really wanted to highlight it because I think it's a great initiative. The other thing I want to do is give a shout out to the Xamarin.Forms team. Wow, 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 wow.
Yeah.
Well, we did it. Xamarin.Forms 3.5 shipping officially. I am so toasty excited about it. My favorite one, this bindable layouts. Oh my goodness, so flippin' cool. I can't wait to go through the conference app and just tear it apart and just update everything in our GeoContacts app. David, do you want to highlight anything in this blog post that blows your mind?
Well, certainly the bindable layout stands out. You know, with all the 3.0 releases, 3.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what I'm hearing from a lot of people, and as a matter of fact, I was just talking to a team this morning in Poland, and they were sharing with me that if they had started the project they're working on today, the one that they started previously, but if they were starting it today, they probably wouldn't need 70% of their custom renderers because we have closed the gap on so many things that people need to do to get their apps, you know, to where they need to be. So that's a fantastic testament to not only the work that the team has been doing, but I think the whole Microsoft focus on listening closely to what customers really need on a day-to-day basis and what is going to help make you more productive. And we're delivering on that. And I shared this, I think, in the blog post. But, you know, for people, developers, when you are using the most recent version of Xamarin.Forms, you tend to be more satisfied. You're happier, which makes us happy, right? Because that means we're delivering good stuff. If the people on the latest version were the crankiest, then we know we've made a big misstep. So certainly the bindable layout is really cool. The new accessibility fixes, really, improvements to toolbar items, navigation page, master detail page. Those things are really important. Yeah, and you know, number 3, unsealing the span. That may seem like a really simple thing, but you know, when it comes time for you to extend something, to customize Xamarin.Forms, because we try to make sure that you can do just about anything you need to be able to do, whether it's go all the way down to the iOS and the Android, UWP, Mac OS, Windows, right down to the metal, or be productive in the forms layer. When you get to something that's sealed or private, that's really, really frustrating. Yeah, and then you're scrolling the list of contributors. That actually blew me away. I was grabbing them by hand, and I was like, oh, there's like 5 or 6. You know, this is pretty cool. Yeah. And then I asked Samantha, the engineering lead on the team, to run me a quick query if she wouldn't mind. And she gave me this, and I was just like, holy cow. Look at all these contributors. And some of them are names that I don't think that I had seen previously. So that's fantastic. We've had people really step up, come out of the woodwork. Some of those are bug fixes. They're not all enhancements. And some of them are cleanup things. They're housekeeping things. So
very cool.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
I was just going to mention that, David. There's a lot of names in there that I've recognized, but there are some brand new names in there too. And that's great that anybody in the community can just get started and make some big differences in Xamarin.Forms.
Absolutely. It helps the whole community, and we've got some fantastic momentum right now. And if you're thinking of contributing out there and you're watching and listening, please do come over to the Gitter channel and ask questions about how you can contribute or concerns you have getting the NuGets or the project set up and going. And yeah, we want to help you be successful.
Very cool. Yeah, we had some good comments about bindable layout, mind blowing. So pretty awesome. Yeah, I'm super excited for that, and yeah, it's really nice to see it because I know we talked about Gerald last time, a lot of the pull requests that he had done, but it's really great to see everyone on here. So very cool. So yeah, congratulations to the team and to everyone that contributed. I've already updated a bunch of my apps, and it went very smooth. I know Maddie's been testing all the new features as well on her form stuff.
Oh yes.
Well, cool. So what we like to do on the community stand-up is not only just talk about some really cool things that we're doing, but also talk about all the amazing things that the .NET community in the mobile world with Xamarin and cloud and everything are doing, and talk about some great blog posts. So I figure since I have to leave early today, and there's quite a lot of content that we found, I'm going to let Maddie lead the charge and go over all these amazing things. And feel free, of course, to, this is recorded, it's on YouTube. We're monitoring the YouTube and Twitch chat. We'll be there.
Yep.
And also we have a bonus guest, Mr. Jonathan Peppers, coming on to show some awesome Android improvements later on. So stick around for that. Cool. I'll let you go ahead and share your screen, Maddie, and go from there.
All right, my turn to drive. Very dangerous. All right, first off, everyone, you are more than welcome to follow along with this one tab right here that James put together for us. Thank you, James. Through this little link right here. So aka.ms/standup-feb7-2019.
I'll shove that in the chat too.
Woohoo! And we have a whole bunch of stuff today. But to start it off, we want to talk about Xamarin Month, which is super exciting. So if anyone has heard of the C# Advent Calendar, I actually hadn't heard of it until I saw this, but it's a month where you do a different blog post on C# every day. And it's a whole initiative, and it's awesome. So Luis M. decided he was going to put that together for Xamarin. And because it's February, it's all about love and friendship, which is awesome. So he has a whole list of rules that he had circulated earlier, and basically said that you can reserve a slot for a day, select a topic on a blog, make your blog post, and then on the day of that you had reserved, according to the lovely Xamarin calendar that he has at the bottom here, publish it, and then it'll all be here. So a bunch of the blog posts we're going to go through today are actually from this, which is awesome. You can see, people have signed up for all different days. There are already 6 up. Which is super exciting. And the first one, great segue, is into this right here. So it's by this guy, James Montemagno. I don't know if you've heard of him. He does the streaming thing sometimes. But I will toss it over to him if he wants to talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, I know it's community stuff. I figured I wanted to start off the month. I met Luis, and he's a great individual. And the post is extremely long, so I encourage you to read it, leave some comments, give feedback. But I've been doing Xamarin development for 7 years. I just thought that I wanted to kind of give the reasons why I chose Xamarin 7 years ago, and why I continue to choose not only Xamarin, but the entire .NET ecosystem. So I not just call it why you should choose Xamarin, but it's why I chose Xamarin and why I continue to. So it's not really this is why for you, but I make hopefully a lot of great points and talk about our commitment. And now that I'm more on the inside, I kind of give some kind of inside info, a little bit of how the teams are working. So I've been really receptive to feedback. I've actually worked with the community that's left comments on hey, this C# code could be fixed up, or the Swift code comparison could be fixed up, or VS Mac, you don't make it a big enough point of the differences. So I went through and I have been adjusting as we go. So definitely give it a look. And I kind of talk about the full end-to-end. So it was one that I've wanted to write for a long, long time, and I'm really happy to be able to do it finally.
Yeah, I read the whole thing once I saw it tweeted out, and I was like, wow, I actually, some of these things, I was like, I didn't realize you could use this so easily or simply, or that this was such a good end-to-end solution.
I try.
Some of the stuff we use every day, like Azure DevOps, but there was a lot of other stuff, a lot of good nuggets of wisdom in here. James wisdom.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm open to feedback, so let me know.
Yeah, for sure. And that is this one right here, why I choose Xamarin. Yeah, so some of the other ones we have, let's see if the next one is one of these. Yes, Azure Table Storage, very exciting. So this is by it's by Louis B. And it's actually part of a series he's writing on Azure Storage and Xamarin, which is very cool. And this is the second one in that series. So he talks a lot about basically this music app he's building that you can add and remove songs from a database all in Azure. And there's actually no code you have to do in the Azure part. So this is the Azure setup. You just get your keys and you create a table, and that's it. Super easy peasy. And then you make a Xamarin.Forms app, and he has all of his code up on his GitHub, which is awesome. And all you have to do is create 3 functions with this package right here. And it was very similar to the system.net.http, the client and everything, which was very nice. So it's the same kind of concept. So there's a get method, a save method, which updates or creates a new one, and then the delete method. It's super simple. So all of the code's right here in the article for that one file, and then the rest of the code is up on his GitHub.
Yeah, Matthew, don't we have like a quick start or something with Azure storage too somewhere?
We do.
Yeah, did you
Yep.
write that?
Ooh.
Yeah, I will get a
link?
I'll put a link on the YouTube page.
Very cool. This is awesome. I like that. I like these series of like how to build
Yeah.
something. Very cool.
Me too. It makes it so easy. Like this, it's just 2 views. So the song list view, which you can add, which looks a lot like our default templates for like master detail and tab pages, but he kind of built them himself. So it doesn't have any of the other stuff in there, which is nice. So you just go ahead, you add them all in, you hit save, works, and then it's right there. Easy peasy. And it's all in your Azure table. So you don't have to do any funky API endpoint stuff. You don't have to, it's not that complicated. It's very easy.
Nice.
So exciting. Yeah, any questions in the chat? No, not yet. Not that I see, which is good. And you can delete them when you hate that song again. So that's awesome. What's the next one? So this one was another part of the Xamarin Month. And it's Xamarin and Azure Signal R, which I know is very popular now. If you haven't heard of Signal R, there's a lot of information about it on the interwebs, but it's basically just, like pushing things to your device or whatever in real time. So a lot of people think about it as chat. So someone sends you a message and it automatically pops into your phone. But I also have seen it used for things like maps, like following people on a map. So constantly updating, all that kind of stuff. And this was another actually really simple demo. So all you have to do is make 2 Azure functions. One of them is for the Signal R connection, and one of them is for the actual service. You put them up on your Azure, and he talks a little bit about you can add authentication, but we're not going to go through it right now, which is good. And then the app is just very simple to post your message. You use the HTTP client, and you put it up, you post it, very normal. And then to get it, there's this hub connection builder, and you just do hub equals connection builder dot build. And when it gets a chat message, it deserializes it for you, and you can do whatever you want right in here with this code. The other thing that he does, which is nice, because I never do this when I build apps, and I always kick myself later, I forget to do things like stop and dispose things.
Yeah.
So I was very happy he put that in there, because it's only 2 easy functions. So
Very nice.
yeah, so that one's good. I know we're flying through here, so people feel free to tell me to stop, slow down.
No, you're great. It's perfect.
Well, I was going to comment on this real quick that
Yes.
I have been, it's been my bedtime reading, this book. And I've already found a couple of cool little tricks. It's always very cool to, as developers, right? And the community in particular, we get so much value out of exposing ourselves to more people and exposing ourselves in the best way possible. But, meeting new people, not only their cultures, not only, where they're from and what kind of work that they do, but, how do they use the same technology that we use day in and day out? And so with this book, I can get a glimpse into how Daniel and the people that he works with go about using Xamarin and Xamarin.Forms.
Yeah.
And I always glean something cool, a little nugget here and there. So it's been a great book. It doesn't put me to sleep. That's not what I'm saying. That's not why it's my bedtime reading. But
It helps you sleep happily, knowing that you've learned so much.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. So the next one we have is another Xamarin Month one. See, it was a very great initiative getting that started. And it's kind of a different spin on what James did. So it's a little bit more specific to Xamarin than the whole pipeline. But it is 10 lovely things you should tell your friends about Xamarin by Martin Z. And I would also recommend going through and reading this one. There's some funny stuff, like he dug up where the word Xamarin came from, which was my first question when I started. All our cute monkeys. My favorite part of this article, though, and I just want to show you a glimpse of this real quick. I don't know if you've seen this yet, David. It's amazing.
Oh, I did. Absolutely. It's cool.
Yeah. It's a visualization of the growth of Xamarin.Forms repo. So I'm not going to try and let my computer buffer and HD and all that stuff, but you could see just like immediately, this is every day as a new point on this map, and it's got all the contributor names. So if you've ever contributed to any files or anything in Xamarin.Forms, you can probably see yourself pop up here.
You're in there somewhere.
Yeah,
I've seen
very
this before.
cool.
I did this a while ago in GORS or JORS or whatever it's called, like a little program that you can run. It's pretty great. I've ran it on like all my repos and a bunch of like the big like .NET repos, and it's crazy to see. And you can do different time spans. It's a cool project.
Awesome. That's really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I sat and I watched
watching it
this
now. I'm marking where I joined. I joined about 4 months ago, and it's growing faster. It's much better now after I joined, right?
Right.
It's
Exactly.
maybe just my perspective.
As one would imagine, David.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I watched this in half speed in HD yesterday, and I just was like, "Wow, it's amazing!" It was very fun. So cool. Yeah, he's got 10 really good points in here. So definitely give it a read if you get a chance. And where are we in the one tab? We are right here, so we're making good progress. The next one, flip my page notes. Oh, this one's really cool. So this one is by Glenn V. And it's basically, let me show you the demo down at the bottom so you understand. Being able to keep a title of your content up at the top. So the first thing I thought of this is back from my web dev days, like Bootstrap's navbar, when you could stick it to the top as you scrolled. It was always my favorite thing. That's what I would use for everything. And I was like, oh, this is nice. So basically, he sticks a scroll view in a grid, and he writes a little nifty function in C# on the code behind of his page that whenever the image changes sizes, whenever the scroll view gets moved, it recalculates where the title text is. So the title text is that little blue part that says "bear found in the wild." And he calls it like an animation, even though it's standing still, which is pretty fancy. Nice. It just recalculates the Y point. And I learned so much about Xamarin.Forms just from reading this. Like, I didn't know you could call, like, just title text.y was a value. I was like, nice. That's easy. I should use that a little bit more.
Yeah, sometimes the best part about reading all these blog posts are all these things that you forgot were in the tool. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I was like, this is such a nifty little feature. And then I was like, maybe I'll Slack David and tell him to build it in for me. Put it in Forms itself, but maybe 4.0.
Good idea.
Yeah. So this was really cool. And this is one of those nice, I know on Twitter we've seen a lot of like, look, Xamarin.Forms is beautiful. Look at this cool thing I've built. And this was one of the things that I was like, oh, people should talk about this kind of stuff. Because in terms of usability, like, so nice. So, all right, next one. Oh, Zam Girl, one of my personal fave blogs by Charlene A. She does a lot of quick tips, which is so nice because somehow she always pops up in my Google searches when I'm like, how do I do this? And I get put on this blog a lot. This one was just basically a catch-all for all the different things you can do with the tabbed page in the tab bar. So she's kind of got her summary up here, but the bottom tab page, custom fonts, custom text colors, custom icons, custom backgrounds. And in the very end, something that I guess had never seen before was the animation in the Android bottom tab, which James had wrote a blog post on a while ago that she links to. So this is a nice catch-all of things that are already existing in docs or blogs and stuff that, and a custom renderer she wrote. So you can kind of go through here and use it to find a whole bunch of different stuff to customize your tabs. And what with material design and all this stuff about everything being tabs now, this was really helpful for some apps that I was working on.
Nice. That's great.
So,
I actually just shared that blog post today with somebody who hit me up on Twitter asking questions about Android bottom tabs.
That's awesome.
So check this out. This will have everything you needed to know.
All right, everyone, I got to head out.
All right, James.
Matthew's going to hold down the fort.
All right, I got Twitch stream controls.
All right, cheers, everyone. I'll see you guys next
See you,
month.
James.
Bye, James.
Bye, James.
Very cool. Yeah, this is that Android thing. This is gross, but apparently very easy to turn off. So
yeah, that. So the nice thing is that if you use Xamarin.Forms shell, you don't have to worry about that at all.
Oh.
The interesting thing about tab bar I was going to mention is that a lot of, not a lot, but if you're not more comfortable with the underlying platforms, because this does require a custom renderer. I mean, you need to go down to iOS and Android to get that level of customization because the implementations on those native platforms are just so drastically different. Mm-hmm. Now, you always have the option to just not use it. Don't use the native control. Build your own. It's 5 buttons, and now you need to manage from that point on how you swap out your pages, or if they're even separate pages or not, so you don't get the benefit of that tab bar. But it might save you a ton of time just not even bothering with that tabbed page. Go with your own custom control. Keep it all in Forms. I know that the Grail Kit guys ship their own implementation of a bottom tab bar, and perhaps some of the other vendors do as well. I just, off the top of my head, I don't remember who they are.
Wow, that's a good tip. Extra custom, all in XAML.
Yeah, which I find that a lot of people are very happy to do that.
Yeah.
Although, again, the team I was talking to this morning, they were like, yeah, we're totally cool with going into custom renders. It's nice when we don't have to, but we're comfortable. So.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Keep on chugging. All right. The next one is by Zamboy, believe it or not, which is Rendy. And he worked on this particle system to basically do fireworks inside of Xamarin.Forms. And so he drills down both into Android and iOS and different ways you can do like these particle systems in there. So first he makes just in your Xamarin.Forms project, like the actual routing effect for it. But then there's the Android platform one, which uses this thing, Leonids, maybe. And then he goes down and he does it again in iOS using a different thing, the CA emitter layer. And it's actually very nice at the end. In Android, you just click, and in iOS, where you click, it pops up as a firework.
Nice.
Yeah, so just cool little animation stuff. And another example of, custom renderers that are pretty cool. Also, you can keep them up. So if you really want to drive people nuts in your apps, just have them wherever they click. It shows this forever. So
those are fun experiments to do. I still can't imagine where I would use that in an app. But I mean, if I had a game, maybe it would be great for a game as a reaction or something like that. But
yeah, what they should do is they should swap out the end of solitaire on Windows XP and make it this instead.
Yeah, but fundamentally being able to show just how much you can do in a Xamarin app, right? It's pretty awesome.
And a lot of times the animations are always good for a waiting indicator too. If you have to do some background processing or you're waiting for a network to come back, just let the user know you haven't forgot about them. So.
It's like that dinosaur scroller in Google Chrome, my favorite.
Yep, yeah, the scroll game.
Exactly. All right, I got two more. This one's a podcast featuring some other guy that does some streams sometimes, David. And this is backed by our friend Daniel H., who did that Azure Signal R article. But he does these podcasts called App in the Cloud. I guess he has some pretty cool guests on it, if you can't tell from this. But they talked about the evolution of Xamarin.Forms, which is actually a pretty cool story. So give it a listen if you're curious. There's always so many tidbits of like funny pieces of history or wisdom. And, so he talks a little bit about upcoming, I guess, the Xamarin.Forms that shipped yesterday, 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So pretty cool stuff.
It was a good time. We talked for a long time. You can see it's 68 minutes long.
Ooh.
So
it's for when you're stuck in traffic or when you're stuck on the train trying to get to the Patriots victory parade. So yeah, had to sneak that one in. But, and then the final article I have for you before we turn it over to the community contributions is this one about snack bars. So I see snack bars all the time in Android, and I never actually realized that they're not just like an easy thing that happens all the time. And in Xamarin.Forms, this guy actually built a snack bar. So this is, who is this? I don't have the name of this person. This Doomer, maybe?
Sure.
But it's all in XAML in Xamarin.Forms. So there's no custom renderers here, which is fantastic. And the most of it is in XAML. So it's just a label and a button. Very easy. He makes it bindable and reusable with some nifty C# stuff. And then adds some animations for opening and closing it. And that's it. You use it, you click the button, and it pops right up. So super easy. It's probably like maybe under 100, under 200 lines of code. And he made it reusable. And now it's like, all right, I'll just copy paste this in everything I use. Pretty simple. So you can also do like opening and closing from this button and opening and closing it, or just closing it from the snack bar itself, which is pretty nice. So yeah, that is our community contributions we have on this one tab. So feel free, again, I know James put it in the chat, but aka.ms standup-feb7-2019 if you want to click around to any of these. And wait for even more from Xamarin Month, because those are going to be really awesome. So turning it over to David, you can take control if you want to drive here, if you want me to.
Well, so I do want to mention just real quick on these blogs, there's so many out there. There's so much happening. This is really just a piece of it. So there's a lot of things that didn't make it here. If we had a 3-hour show, maybe we could highlight absolutely everything. But keep the good blog posts coming, sharing the knowledge that you have and the tips. It's awesome. It helps us, and it certainly helps the community. Before I go into pull requests and things like that, let's hear from Jamie. She's got some updates for us on community events and .NET Foundation.
I will unshare myself.
Yeah, I think this actually works well as a nice segue. After all of those amazing community contributions, I'm going to kind of keep it going on a similar track. And I can go ahead and share my screen. I don't see why not. Let's share this.
Somebody had a cool flowery background desktop looking thing there.
Yeah,
that was me. That's me pretending
it's really beautiful. We can always hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just really quick, a couple of the things that I want to piggyback right off of Maddie is that we do have a lot of community contributions and a lot of community out there trying to help everybody. And so not all of the events that everybody can attend, they can attend in person. And so I heard this week that streaming is definitely the interest of the community. And so I just wanted to highlight a couple of these streaming events that I've known and heard of and that I like, and I'm sure there's plenty more out there. But definitely things like the Toronto Mobile Developers, they stream all of their events. And Louis Beltran, again, hitting it a home run with his community efforts. He streams a lot of content online and on his YouTube channel, all in Spanish. That way, if you have any localization, you can hear it right in a language of your choice. So those are really great streaming channels that I like to follow, and I suggest to you as well. Some other people that I really love, who I don't have their channel on right now, but is NewCat. She streams on Twitch, and she's fantastic. Her name is Suze Hitton, and she does a lot of IoT and JavaScript, as well as the fantastic Jeff Fritz. He's always online on his channel. I think he streams 4 to 5 times a week in the morning. Ooh, let's pause him. And I believe he's also considering evening stream as well for those on a different time zone. We also have the DNN Summit coming up this month, where our own John Galloway is actually giving the keynote. This event will be live as well, but John is our fantastic community member, executive director of the .NET Foundation, and he'll be giving a really good update at this conference. Some really fantastic updates for the .NET Foundation that I want to share with you guys today, if you haven't heard, is that the .NET Foundation is now completely open membership. And what that means is that we're encouraging everybody who contributes to .NET in any form, come be an actual free member of the .NET Foundation community. And this gives you an opportunity to vote on the board members that you would like to see kind of running this organization. And it used to be a very Microsoft-focused and run community, and we really want to reopen that back up to the open source community. And we've elected one of our own people, Beth Massey, as one of the board members to represent Microsoft. But we're really looking to the community and all of you fantastic folk to really build up the rest of this board team. And that way we can have better contributions, more diverse, more open and inclusive, and we can get a lot more people participating. All of the details for the open membership can be found here, and I'm not sure that I will be able to post this as a link. Ooh, yeah, so it didn't work. I have another version where you can find, it's the .NET Foundation.org/blog, and it has all of the lovely details about the open membership. and how to become a voting member, how to become a corporate sponsor, since we've opened up the partnership as well for the community, and how to become a board member should you get voted on and want to be a part of the larger board community there. So those are all the updates that we have from the .NET Foundation and the community on the streaming front. So I think I can stop sharing and hand this back over to, yeah, that was a quick whirlwind. Sorry if I went a little too fast there, guys.
Love it.
So Jamie, can you share some of those streaming links that you had, or put them in the channel there so we can
yeah, so if I put them in
You have to put them through our chat, our program, the Restream. So you can also, I don't know if you can add things to one tab. Probably not. But you could make a one tab and drop it in there.
At the very least, what I'll do is I'll put them into YouTube at the end here so we can get them afterwards.
Sure. Yeah, so we have Jeff Sharp's stream, and we have New Cat's stream. I had her stream. Where did she go?
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, while you are working on that, then why don't I go ahead and move on to some of the cool PRs that we have snagged to highlight. So I'm going to share my whole desktop because why not?
Woohoo!
It's the worst that could happen. All right. You got me?
Gotcha.
Because there's a delay down there. All right, cool. So as I was listening to Jamie, I was like, you know what? I should probably highlight this. We have the built with .NET, built with .NET. And this is a great place for you to go feature the different apps, whether they are commercial products or internal experiments, whatever. You know, treat it like your little showcase. And show off the work that you've been doing, because it's really cool to be able to see this stuff. I get asked a lot, you know, what apps are made with Xamarin, what apps are made with Xamarin.Forms, and I certainly can share quite a few, but unless you have told me that it's okay, or unless your organization has already said that they're using Xamarin, then I don't really have the liberty necessarily to tell you all the really cool stuff that I see behind closed doors or under NDA. So this is a great way to showcase those things. I mean, I can tell you, just generally speaking, there are some really amazing apps out there that make their way by you every single day on somebody's phone. That if you knew to look, they are Xamarin apps, and it's pretty cool. So check out build with .NET, add your stuff there, and then definitely share it on social, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatnot. All right, cool. So that's that. Let's look at some PRs, and I need to go back to the beginning to here. So Andre submitted this PR. And it's in consideration. We need to have some discussion on it, but this is for Xamarin.Forms. And this is a fluent layout syntax. So, even like shortly after I started, I was like, hey, team Jason, what do you guys think about this fluent syntax? I find it really useful. For those who don't do much with XAML and prefer to do things in C#, this seems to be quite popular. So is this something that Xamarin itself should support? There are other NuGet packages out there that have different implementations. Some of them are not maintained regularly, but this is an option. So if this is something that you have thoughts on, would like to see happen, come comment on that. I think it's a cool idea, but cool ideas aren't how we make decisions. So. Please come let us know if this would be useful to you. Let's see here. Andre Nitiscu, the author of the bindable layout, by the way, has contributed this set background color. So, just another really useful one that addresses 3 issues. I mean, that's bang for the buck right there, right? You solved three issue reports in one swing. So that's fantastic. So thank you for doing that. And we have 3 green checks. So as soon as that guy passes whatever automation tests are running, actually, I'm not logged in with my account, so you can't see automation tests down there. So that'll be a nice one. All right. And let's skip over to this one. I wanted to highlight this one. Sonia, if I'm saying your name properly, in the Ukraine has committed this one, and I believe he's committed quite a few Mac PRs, if I recall. When it comes to things outside of iOS and Android, so at this point, that's UWP, WPF, Tizen, GDK. Did I miss one? Mac OS is in there. The community is really currently driving these things because the core engineering team is focused on iOS and Android, which, makes sense because that's where the majority of users are. And, we don't ignore the other stuff, but it's an open source project, and that's what being open source is all about. So we want to support you as best we can in these things. And I love that if you go look at the 3.5 release and you look at all those contributions that are on that blog post, you'll see that so many of them are UWP, Mac, and the other platforms, and a lot of ties and stuff in there as well. And that's because the community, obviously, you care about these things. You need these things for your daily business. And we are absolutely here to support you in that as best we can. So thank you, Sonia, for this PR to address the scroll to on Mac. There are probably quite a few gaps in the API on Mac, but I do absolutely know that customers are out there in the wild using it. This is one that is coming to us in 3.6. As a matter of fact, if you have not been paying attention to NuGet, 3.6 pre-1 is actually now available. We want to let the news of 3.5 going stable land first and simmer, but 3.6 pre-1 is up. And Almir from Bosnia, I believe, if I remember correctly. Yep. He committed this one, and it was a kind of a longer road getting this one in. He started this back in February of last year. But, here we are a year later, and it's finally shipping. So really glad to see that happen, and really glad that he persisted and worked with us through this. Now, perhaps that's a good time for me to comment that we certainly realize that some PRs do take a while. And your time and your availability as a contributor goes up and goes down, right? You have more time available, you get busy with your own deadlines and your own projects. So there are times when the team will then, ask, hey, do you mind if we take this PR over and push it across the finish line if you're not available? So, and you as a contributor, please feel free to say, listen, I've gotten this as far as I can. I don't really have the time commitment right now to be able to see the rest of this PR through. Would you mind taking it over? And we will certainly do that as we are able. So that's an option available to you. Don't feel like you need to die on your sword and that you can't hand it off to us. All right. So this is another one from Andre. So this is map item source item template. So you now have a pin source, if I remember correctly, or for your pins. So you can do groupings of pins, right, and bind them to your maps. So, it's interesting when we go look at the components that are most popular in Xamarin apps, maps are way up there. So there are a lot of apps out there that you are building that have maps in them, apps that have maps. And we also know that carousel view is also an extremely popular control, and you're using a lot of third-party controls, and some are even still using the preview of the carousel view that we shipped back at Evolve 3, I guess. Do we call them Evolve 3s? Do we call them by years? I don't remember all the years. Although, don't get too excited, but I am wearing my original Evolve 2013 shirt here, so I don't know if you can see that.
It's like vintage.
It is vintage, and it's not in great shape these days. Do you have one of those, Matt?
I don't have the original. Let's see if I can get you on, David. We're still sharing the screen.
I wasn't on?
No.
I can't do it. Well, here,
we'll get
maybe later.
All right.
Let's keep the momentum
All
going.
right, yep.
We don't need
the fashion show.
Fashion show. There you go. Thank you. All right, so next PR here, what do we have? So the enhancement to add drag start and drag complete events to the slider. So this is from Matthew Richardson, and he's contributed quite a few things over the years. And, when it comes to gestures and getting the appropriate events off of interactive things, a lot of times they have not been exposed in the earlier versions of Xamarin.Forms. So it's nice to be able to start adding those things. For example, if you think of list view right now, it's quite difficult to get to the scroll events because the underlying native controls on iOS and Android are quite different. And you can go find some custom renderers, or you can write your own custom renderer and try to unify some of those things. But with Collection View, which is coming up in Xamarin.Forms 4.0, you actually get all those events that you need right out of the implementation. So it was certainly something that we prioritized there because we know from talking to you that that is a difficulty, and also it's extremely beneficial. And it's also much easier then for you to achieve certain parallax effects and things like that, which parallax is one of the effects that I keep implementing over and over again lately. And I was actually working in Fabulous F# with it over the weekend and found that the scrolled event and any related telemetry on scrolling was completely missing from the implementation. So they're adding that now. I'm excited to see that. So yeah, this is a cool one. Has the appropriate checks, and it's been merged, so that will be coming soon. All right, what else we got here? Just a couple more. So fixing a big crash with big APKs. So this is a pretty substantial one, if I'm not incorrect here. So Matthew, I assume would be the pronunciation of that, bourgeois. So I will attempt the last name and the first name, and you all can tell me just how badly I butchered it. But I'm always intrigued by pronunciations. So, you know, some significant PRs here coming in, not only to Forms, but we also, hey, you know, Android and iOS and Mac OS and the other platforms are also open source. And while they don't currently see as many contributions, they, you know, you're very welcome to please submit PRs there as well. And on Android in particular, you know, look at this. This one he tested with a 800 megabyte application that was crashing before. But everything's now running smoothly. So, you know, how great is that? Of course, if you have such a large Android application, we may want to look at your resources and see what's going on there. That's a hefty beast. Yeah. I can't imagine trying to get that thing. I mean, certainly it's not going to get into the App Store, but wow. Let's see, what else do we have here? We have some stuff from the Mac iOS repository. So this is base. Oh, don't you love the Apple naming from the old Objective-C days? Base font size percentage relative to video height. Say that three times fast, right?
And the variables right
yeah.
in the middle there too, eventually.
Yeah,
Anyways.
I know. Oh, wow. So Philippe contributed this one. It's a bug fix. You know, iOS and Android, for the most part, are bindings to the native SDKs. So they're not really introducing much in the way of additional functionality. But how they implement those bindings, and they certainly can add some nice .NET Sugar syntax and things like that to improve the experience for .NET developers. But even so, you know, even though it's mostly at its core a binding situation, you know, there's still bugs like this, and we absolutely love it when people come out of the woodwork and plug those holes for us. And then another one on the iOS team, or for the iOS project, Jonathan contributed this one, the NS URL session handler. So being able to make sure that you don't try to execute that when the request has already been canceled, because of course you handle your cancellation tokens and whatnot. So thank you very much, Jonathan, for also contributing that. And there were actually quite a few other PRs that I did not include. And you know what I was thinking, Maddie, is that with the one tab, you know, we may not talk about all of them, but we should probably still include everything that was even under consideration that we were aware of, so that everyone can kind of see it as a nice digest. So
I think that's a great idea. Let's do it.
That's a good way to get that out there, right? Yeah, for March. Here we go.
So David, one question that came in from Jay Tillery04 is that bindable layout and the upcoming collection view seem to overlap. Can you go into some of the different use cases for each?
Absolutely. So the key difference is that bindable layout is not virtualized. So this is best for a situation where you have a small number of things that you want to just slap onto your layout, your screen, and perhaps you want it in a different layout, because you can use any of the layouts: grid, stack layout, you can use flex layouts, and you can just bind a collection of things to it. But it's not going to be virtualized. It's, of course, it doesn't turn those layouts into scrolling layouts. So you would still need to, if you needed to, you would still add it into a scroll view and handle that yourself. But it's best for that situation, for those lightweight situations where you just need to do that. Now, collection view is your full-featured, robust list / whatever. You've got something you want it to be a grid, you want it to be a horizontal list, vertical list. It's the basis for a carousel view, and it's fully virtualized. It has caching mechanisms. It has templates for your empty view, for your item views. It has a template selector. So it's really the full package. It's everything that you've tried to do with list view and perhaps struggled with. So it is going to provide all that functionality to you, and it's going to use the most highly optimized implementations on the native platforms with a UI collection view on iOS and the recycler view on Android. But it may not be what you need. You may not need an infinite scrolling list, which is what it would work well for. And so if you've got just 20 things and it's going to be probably the same 20 things, or maybe you will be updating those things, but it's a more lightweight situation and you're not concerned about the virtualization, then I would go with the bindable layout. So you could think of it in other platforms, other frameworks as a repeater view, just the most basic implementation of that.
Sweet.
All right. Any other questions before we see if we can get Mr. Peppers on here?
All right.
I think Matt's been doing an awesome job in the chat, so I don't see anything right now. But I guess it's time to call up the Peps.
It is. Do you want to
right.
dial him in and I'll stop sharing?
I will dial him in, but you stay sharing until we know he gets on.
Android's D8 Dexter and R8 Shrinker.
Yeah, he's going to come on and give us the down low on what he and the team have been up to over on Android. They've been doing a heck of a job with performance. I mean, just like last week, I think it was, I heard that they had improved Android.Forms startup performance by 50%.
I know, it's been going crazy.
Yeah,
How fast
I
it's
see a
going?
Peppers.
All right.
Hey.
All right, I will stop sharing my screen. And thanks for joining us, John. How
No
you doing?
problem. I'm doing pretty good. I am an engineer on the Xamarin Android team. I feel like we've been getting some things done, so I can kind of talk about what we're doing.
Yeah, please give us the down low, man. I was just kind of giving a little preemptive how amazing it is what the team's been doing in terms of startup performance as well as build times and deploy times. I pulled up your blog post for the D8, R8, X8, P8, whatever the 8s are. And so you can tell us what all this means and educate us.
Well, let me share my screen. I have a quick slideshow here.
Ooh. Got slides. Slides in the stand-up.
Can we see that?
Yep, got
We
it.
can.
Yeah, you're gonna want to go.
Although
Are
we're
you-
seeing presenter view.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I thought, how about this? That looks right.
Nice.
There we go.
All right. Yeah, so our theme lately has been build performance and reliability. And we also talked about startup performance, but that will be coming in 2019, some of those changes. So, but let me talk about first what we shipped in 15.9. The version numbers are a little confusing, but if you want to think of anything that's 15.x, that's Visual Studio 2017, and anything that's 16 or higher, that's going to be 2019. And VS for Mac is even more different than that. So, but one of the areas we've been working on is we call it the delete bin obj project. And if you've been a Xamarin developer, you might have had a case where you hit a weird error and it goes away when you do a rebuild or you delete your bin and obj directories. So it's been our mission to fix these kinds of problems because it's just frustration and no developer wants to go through that. And one thing to mention is, these are kind of hard to figure out problems because it's like, it required all these crazy steps. Like you build your project, you change this line of code, you change this setting. And and then you build again and something happened. So we've only been able to figure these out through bug reports, and people in the community, they send us logs, they try to figure out what they did, and that's been a great help to kind of figure out those kinds of things. And the other big thing is we want to improve the time it takes for you to change one line of code, hit play, see your app running again. And I think we've got some really good progress towards that. So this is an example here of 3 apps. Unfortunately, the large one is skewing the graph a little bit, but Hello Forms is basically like file new project, and then the Smart Hotel is a project on GitHub, a sample you might have seen. And then that Xamarin.Forms gallery is actually in the Xamarin.Forms repo. And it's quite big because there's a lot of projects. Yeah, you get the idea. And so we already had 15.9. We just kind of got started on the improvements, and hopefully in 2019 it'll be even better. A similar thing with the deploy times. So
That's going in the right direction.
Yeah, Hello Forms here like blew my mind. Because I was using it the other day, like to file new, and I deployed it, and I was like, I think it's definitely a lot faster. And then I came across this graph at some point, and I was like, oh, 10 seconds. 10 seconds.
Yeah, substantial. So John, the Smart Hotel, maybe explain why we tend to use that one in a lot of our reporting on these performance things. What is it about Smart Hotel that makes it a fair candidate for this?
Well, it's one of the bigger open source Xamarin.Forms projects that anyone can go out there, build it, take a look at it, and we build it as part of our open source repos like CI and things like that. We have other projects that are internal, and unfortunately we can't share the results of what happens with those. So
when you say larger, are we talking in terms of screens or assets or what?
All of the above. So if someone has an idea of a project that would be a better candidate, I'm definitely willing to try it out. And if it takes longer to build than Xamarin.Forms Gallery, that would be even better for us to look at.
Yeah,
so.
I was curious if for people listening, if they're thinking about, well, I struggle with some of these things on my project. Is it the number of files that I have? Is it the number of images? Are my images too big? Do I have too many NuGet packages? That sort of thing. What should they be looking for that's in their control to be able to improve some of these things?
Yeah, I think, well, that's a tough question. There's a lot of ways. One thing I've seen is if you have your own custom build step in your project, you might want to go and invest the time to just make sure that it's right. Make sure that thing isn't causing your project to rebuild every time. But other than that, NuGet packages, it's hard to say, hey, don't use so many NuGet packages, So that's why, that's just how you build apps, So
Sure. All right, gotcha. Well, I feel like I'm in the doctor's office talking to the doctor right now, and I want to know,
Yeah.
like my knee hurts. Tell me what I need to do.
Yeah. So this is a side-by-side comparison that John Douglas on our team made this, and this is showing 15.8 and 15.9. Hopefully, we'll have a similar comparison video we can make when 2019 ships, and it'll be even better. So yeah, let's talk about the new stuff. Let's talk about this D8 thing, right? Since
Yes,
that's what I'm here to talk about.
It's D8, not date, right? It's not like.
Well,
Date.
I think they named it after V8. If you're familiar with the JavaScript engine in Chrome, I think they're trying to be cool and name it after that. I've not heard anyone call it date yet. Anyway, so
Just me.
yeah.
Matt, were you about to say something?
I'm going to say you got to rate the date. R8 and D8. But,
So
It's going to be my next Xamarin.Forms app I built.
I will not be able to get that out of my head.
Yeah, rate your date. Anyway, So what this is about is how Java code is compiled and shipped in your app. Now you might be thinking, I'm building a Xamarin app. What does Java have to do with me? We live within, the Android ecosystem, and if you use like the Android support library or any of the native controls in Android, those are Java. So this happens during Xamarin Android builds. So, well, let's just kind of talk about the old way first. What used to happen is you'd have all this Java code and it gets compiled. And then there's like 3 steps here that take you from your project to the final file that sits in your APK file. And this is obviously slow and takes a while. And so Google in 2017, they decided that they could redo this process and get it down to just 2 steps instead of all the other crazy steps. And so the benefit is, you just run one command line tool to make that happen. The Xamarin Android build does this. And you don't have to start up the Java JVM that many times over and over and over during your build. And as part of that, they could optimize it. Let me go to the next slide here. A 25% reduction in, I measured this, in a Hello World Forms app, and how long it takes for just this one step. And that contributed to 5 to 10% overall improvement in the whole build. And we have this support available in 2019 Preview 2. If you want to try it out, you just can add a single line to your project. Eventually, this will be a drop-down box in the property options in Visual Studio. But until this is, fully stable, this will probably be maybe an update to 16.0 that will have that. And if you want to learn more, I wrote a blog about this. It is ready to try out. And if we're looking kind of for feedback, if you have a Java library that doesn't work, we want to look into that and figure that out.
So I have a question, and this is probably not something that you may know the answer to, but would it be possible to backport this work to Visual Studio 2017, or does this really need to be in Visual Studio 2019?
I don't know the answer to that. I think, unfortunately, most of our releases are forward-looking.
Yeah.
So I think the idea is that people will upgrade for these kinds of features.
Mm-hmm. And of course, this is all available not just in Visual Studio 2019, but it will be on App Center, Azure DevOps, all the CI, whatnot for building, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. As 2019 goes stable, you'll see all of the different CI providers. They'll upgrade what version of Visual Studio they have available. So. Another way to use this is we do have like nightly builds of Xamarin Android. If you're really wanting to try the latest and greatest, you can look into using those.
It's risky. Maybe on your second machine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like riding that bleeding edge. I feel like it's almost more stable for me, but there are the occasional missteps, sure.
But this is the way Google's going. Eventually, they'll phase out the old way of building Java code. And so this will become the default one day at some unknown amount of times.
Nice.
All right.
Pretty good.
You got more? Is that it? Heat freeze.
Uh-oh. We got a frozen peppers.
Well, it is winter here in Seattle, so maybe it's infecting everything else in the nation.
Maybe that was a mic drop. It could have been a mic drop.
Bam. Rate your date.
All right.
Well,
yeah.
To wrap up, Matt, I do have a quick demo if we have a few minutes. How does Golnaz feel over there? We got a few minutes?
She's not in the room, so I think we can keep on rolling for a couple more minutes. I'll let you know if we get cut off, David. So.
We're not going to get kicked off. All right, well, let me share my screen again. So for those who are still hanging about, and I haven't seen anything coming through on the chat, so I don't know if my chat's just frozen.
Nope. Good to go.
Cool. So what I wanted to show off real quick is where we stand with visual. So the goal with visual in Xamarin.Forms is to make it easier to get your iOS and your Android to look the same. Let me minimize a few more things here because I feel like...
How is your computer not blowing up right now? That's what I want to know.
Well, it's definitely making a little noise, no doubt about it. All right, so I have so many windows open. Sorry about that. All right, so what you're looking at, I guess I could have just killed them all at once, is you're looking at the Android emulator over here running the visual testing suite that we have, and then the iOS rendition of it. And you'll see that they're a lot more alike now than they were if you did a file new experience today. So I am building this with Shell. Morton can now take a drink. And so what you see here is by default my buttons, the different controls that are supported, they're all getting the same treatment. I even get the ripple effect here, borders on the buttons and things like that. And interestingly, as we've been implementing these things, we found that the Android material controls actually lack some properties that we would have expected. Borders and shadows and things like that aren't always there. Now, to really emphasize the difference here, I've got the XAML samples from our sample repository open here, and I made a couple of modifications. I did put it in Shell. And the reason I'm blending Shell and Visual together, you don't have to use them together, but by using them together, I get my navigation bars, my tab bars, and the shell, the container of the application, right? The Chrome of the application, I get that unified more closely. Now, of course, you see here that my button is centered on iOS and it's left aligned on Android. Those are things that I can overcome with a bit of styling. But over here in the samples, I wanted to show you, so I've got the button here, and this is my material button, right? Ooh, but to remind you, yeah, isn't it nice? To remind you what it looks like, I'm just going to flip this button, and that is changing my material, my visual property on the shell. It's changing that to default as opposed to material. So now when I come back here, you see I've got my, this is what it looked like before, right? This is the sample that you would see. Who wants that? Nobody wants that. We want this, right? So come back here, get my button. So there are several controls, as I mentioned. I actually did, and this is you can make this change on a particular control or at the app level. So let me show you real quick how to do this. And these are the controls here in this list that are currently implemented. There are a couple more that the team has been working on, but they're not in this particular build. So let me pull Visual Studio back up super quick. And I'll show you what you need to do to get started with this. So this is the visual testing. So this is my Forms project, and I've got my Android and my iOS here, right? If I zoom in, do you see the zoom in?
No, I don't, but...
Maybe it delays. It doesn't delay. All right, fine, whatever. You want to update to the latest Xamarin.Forms 4.0 preview or the 3.6 preview. In this case, I have 4.01 here, which is an internal nightly build. And then you're also going to add the Forms visual material NuGet. So rather than, and in previous versions of the preview, we were bundling this all together, but from talking to several of you, felt like the way to go was to make this a separate dependency. So it's something that you would opt into. That way you're not bloating your iOS and your Android applications without wanting to. Really, iOS is the only one that takes the hit because Android, of course, has material by default. So this one down here in the Android project isn't doing much. But here in the iOS project, we have the Forms NuGet and we have the Forms Visual Material NuGet. The setup is pretty clean and should look fairly standard. We currently need to have the set flags Shell and Visual experimental. If you just want to use Visual, you don't need Shell. But as I mentioned, I am using Shell to get that extra level of unification of my application across iOS and Android. And then we need to, of course, initialize Forms, as always. But we also need to initialize this forms material to make sure that that doesn't get linked out. Now, we have had conversations on what we could potentially do to make to not need this. And, you know, we're stacking 3 different setup type things that you have to do here. So we have a proposal on a more fluent or other ways in which we could unify these things and not make this such a seemingly disconnected experience. So that's the iOS setup, and on the Android setup, very similar. I don't need to initialize the forms material because it already is material, and there's really no additional renderers that are being included there. And to quickly mention, visual is not just styling. It's not just creating new styles for renderers, although there is additional styling happening. In many cases, there are actual new renderers, separate renderers that unify these things. In your case, when you would do this yourself, you would do what? You would create a custom renderer, right? So we're basically saving you from having to do that by doing the majority of that work for you up front so that your job in unifying is much easier. And then the last step, well, last 2 steps, because I am showing shell and visual. So rather than going to a navigation page as I normally would or a main page, I am going to my shell, setting that as my main page, and then here's my shell. This is all the magic for visual is right there. That's all the API that you really need to know about. There are additional material specific properties that we'll document and show you how to access when you're using visual material. But we'll get to that at a later time. So this, yeah, good to hear. You know, I'm reading some of the comments here. This looks like it would save you a lot of time. That's what we would love to know. So 361 pre-1 is out. You could certainly try it there. You might want to wait for the very next release because there are quite a few PRs that are on the bubble that will be going in. Well, I probably shouldn't tell you to wait. Just go use it. What I would really love to hear from the community, here's what my request is to you. Take one page that perhaps had caused you problems in a previous project, and you were like, man, this might have been the solution to solving that. Start from scratch and just recreate that one page, that one screen, and you know, spend an hour on it and let me know, how did it go? Where did it fall down? Were you successful? Where do we need to improve this experience? Send me a before and after screenshot. Send me a screenshot of the production app. Let me know, because that will be huge in informing how we move this particular feature forward. Visual is currently the material implementation, but you know, we look forward to a Fluent implementation, whether that's Fabric. You know, I always get a little fuzzy between Fluent and Fabric, but you know, there's overlap there. And then, you know, your own corporation, your own branding, your own styles could be made into visuals that you could then promote and share with the community out there. So, whoops, I just totally messed something up. So that I'll cut it off there. Questions? Anybody? Thoughts? Yeah. Does this require Xamarin.Forms 401? This particular sample is available on GitHub. I'll point you to it here real quick. Let me open up the browser again. Boop. So let's go. Well, let's just type in visual testing because I'm all about not typing in everything. Testing. So Pureween, which is Shane Newell on the engineering team, he has shared this out. And so that you can see the NuGet is actually in here, and it uses a NuGet.config. So go grab this, pull this down, and you can use this NuGet package. It was updated 9 days ago. Or you could grab the 3.6 pre-release. They share most of the same bits. The API is certainly the same, so you could try those things. Let's see here. Does the shell tie into the navigation page? So with shell, there is no navigation page. Shell is the navigation page. In terms of that, you have access to the navigation bar and the tab bar, and you can style those things consistently across iOS and Android without doing a bunch of custom renderers. And to do a custom renderer or to get to that native implementation for shell, there's really only one shell renderer that you will override in your platform projects. And we'll have more documentation and examples of that. But that gives you full access to the flyout menu, the tab bar, the navigation bar, and all that sort of thing. Yes, there is a title view in shell. It does currently suffer the same limitations in spacing that the title view does in the existing navigation page. So that means you can't necessarily go all the way left, all the way right to fill the entire space and completely take it over. But that's if that is the goal of your application where you need to completely control that space, then again, going back to the earlier comment I made about the tab page, you may be better off just abandon that control altogether and create a user controller or a custom control, however you want to define that, and do that yourself, and then just put that at the top of every page, or create a base page and inherit that page that has that common, fully controlled space at the top of your UI. Fighting against the native implementation of that navigation page, that navigation bar, may not be the best way to go. Is there a handy blog post and shell example? So there are shell samples on my GitHub. There is also the blog post for shell. Let's see here. I think I have an aka.ms xf shell. Well, there's the shell doc. There's the shell, but I had the blog too, didn't I? No, yes, no. Maybe it was a 4.0 blog. Let's just go to the blog.
Was it
if you look,
Future Mobile Development Xamarin.Forms preview, David?
Yeah.
There it is.
That the 4.0 will have it. Yeah, did you put it in the thing? Thanks. Yep. There's also the MSDN article, which is out there. Which is MSDN.
All right, I got it, David. Authored by you.
Ah, yes.
So yeah, there's there as well, and these all include links to the different samples. Tailwind Traders is the sample that we built for Connect that does a base implementation of shell. We are going to be improving that and adding more of the 4.0 features to it, because at the time that we shipped that, shell was barely born, and there were quite a few things we were still working out, and we still are. So we'll continue to iterate on the Tailwind Traders app, which is what is featured here in this article. Where's my scroll? This app here. And then we're also working on a new sample app that will showcase stuff coming up for build. So plenty of things to dig into there. But as always, ask questions. Hit me on Twitter, Slack. I am in the Xamarin chat Slack instance, which is not something that we maintain. It's fully community maintained. But I'm over there if you wanted to hit me up and ask questions. You can @ me in the Gitter channel as well, although that channel is primarily for contribution conversations. But certainly Twitter, direct message me or hit me up publicly. Happy to talk to you, answer questions. I've been taking samples from some people who have said, hey, how do I achieve this with shell? And I'll go off and work on it and see what gaps I can find. So happy to collaborate with you on that as well. Anything that helps us understand better before we ship these things, that they are meeting needs and they're on target, the better. And so that means getting as much exposure to as many different apps and scenarios as possible.
And David is super helpful. I hit him up on internally, our Slack channel too, and all the time when I have a question, check out the documentation as the usual answer. No. David's
I love it. This is my hobby. I don't really do anything else. So.
David, you did mention build, and I just want to. Jamie posted in the channel before that build has a call for presentations, call for speakers, and if you go to session eyes, and I'll post it in the channel here, that anybody can apply to speak at Build this year. Just announced yesterday, and that's pretty amazing.
It's fantastic.
That is very exciting.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. I got so excited I forgot to mention one of the main announcements that I had was that, yes, we are completely open, calling for papers from the community. We really want to hear your voices on stage. So please feel free to submit via the link that Matt just pasted in the channel. And I'll be personally going through a lot of those. So I'm looking forward to seeing your submissions.
All right.
Cool. Now, Jamie, do I need to submit through that same mechanism?
That's actually a great question.
I know, right? I was like, now I have competition. Oh, no.
I know. It's not just internals. I will confirm that information for you. I believe we do have a section slotted for internal speakers, but a large majority is going to be external.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. That's going to be a wonderful new dynamic to the conference.
Me too. I'm very pumped. First time we're ever doing it this year, so very excited about that.
All right.
Fantastic.
Thanks, everyone.
All right,
All
Matt,
right.
I think we're done, man. You can take us home.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. And this week, we're going to be back, next month, I think, the first Thursday of the month, or is it the second
First
Thursday of the month?
Thursday.
First Thursday of the
First
month.
Thursday.
Be talking about Xamarin and mobile development again. So where can we find everybody on the Twitters and on the GitHubs? David?
So I'm David Ortnow on Twitter and on GitHub.
I'm Maddie Legere1 on Twitter and GitHub.
I'm Jamie Singleton 1 on Twitter and JSing on GitHub.
I'm changing mine to David Ortnow 1. That's going to happen.
Great.
Gotta add the 1.
I was just thinking the
Gotta
same
have
thing.
the number 1.
And I am CodeMillMatt on Twitter and GitHub. So there we go. All right, thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate you guys showing up, and this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, see you
and,
next month.
and Peppers
And Peppers, yeah.
Peppers.
and Jamie.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
The whole
All right.
gang.
All right.
Bye.
We'll see ya.
All right.
See you
see
next
Have a good
everybody
one.
soon.
Take care, guys. Bye.